The rancher just wanted a place to sleep. But those women had other plans. The sun sank low over the endless plains of Red Mesa, painting the horizon with streaks of orange and crimson. Jonah Steele, a rugged rancher with sun-worn skin and a tired back, guided his horse along the dry, cracked soil. Dust rose in gentle clouds with each step of his mechanical hybrid horse, its metallic legs clinking softly as it moved. Jonah had been traveling for days, and his eyes felt heavy with the weight of exhaustion. He only wanted one thing, a simple place to rest, maybe a warm meal and a bed where he could sleep without fear of the night. Ahead, a small outpost shimmered faintly under the twin moons, their pale light giving the metal walls a silvery glow. From a distance, it looked abandoned, a forgotten structure on the frontier, blending the roughness of Old West architecture with hints of futuristic tech. Jonah felt a spark of relief. Maybe tonight he could finally lay down and rest. As he approached, the gate creaked open on its own. The sound echoed over the plains, making Jonah tense. He nudged his horse forward cautiously, his hand resting on the worn grip of his blaster. The outpost's courtyard was quiet, the shadows long and shifting as the moons climbed higher. But then he heard voices, soft, deliberate, and unexpectedly melodic. 3 women emerged from the shadows, their movements confident, almost deliberate. They were unlike anyone Jonah had seen before. One had eyes that glimmered faintly, a soft green light reflecting in the dusk. The second had subtle metallic tattoos along her arms and neck, catching the moonlight. The third exuded calm authority, her posture commanding attention even in stillness. They didn't draw weapons, but Jonah's instincts screamed that this encounter was more than mere hospitality. "Evening, traveler," the woman with glowing eyes said. Her voice was smooth, almost teasing but polite. "You found our little refuge." Jonah tipped his hat, a cautious smile on his lips. "Just looking for a place to sleep," he replied. "Didn't expect anyone to be around." "Many don't," said the woman with the metallic tattoos. "But some of us stay to keep things in order." Jonah nodded slowly, his eyes scanning the outpost. It was larger than it first appeared, with hallways and rooms branching out in ways the exterior walls didn't suggest. He sensed that staying here would not be as simple as sleeping in a bed. The third woman, the one who carried herself with authority, stepped closer. "You're welcome to rest," she said, her tone softer now. "But understand, we have routines, rules, you'll need to follow them." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "Rules?" he asked, shifting his weight. "I've traveled a long way, mostly alone. Can't say I'm used to rules beyond the ones nature sets." The women exchanged glances, almost as if sharing a private joke. The woman with glowing eyes smiled faintly. "Then you may find yourself tested," she said. "Not everyone who comes here leaves unchanged." Jonah felt a flicker of unease, but he pushed it aside. He had faced many dangers in his life, hostile weather, wild animals, rogue settlers, but something about these women hinted at challenges he hadn't encountered yet. He dismounted, patting his horse's metal flank. "All right, I'll take my chances," he said. The women led him through the outpost hallways, their steps quiet on the metal floor. Jonah noticed details he hadn't seen outside. Control panels, holographic displays, and strange devices resting on shelves that seemed almost alive. It was a frontier outpost in the truest sense, part refuge, part fortress, part laboratory. "This way," the authority woman said, guiding him to a modest room at the far end of a hallway. The bed was simple but clean, with blankets folded neatly at the foot. Jonah's exhaustion hit him in full force. He wanted nothing more than to collapse onto the mattress. Before he could, the woman with tattoos spoke. "You should know, Jonah Steele, that sleeping here is not always quiet." He frowned, leaning against the doorframe. "Not quiet?" he asked. "Expect company," she said. "Sometimes visitors arrive unexpectedly. Sometimes the residents themselves decide to keep you awake." Jonah blinked, unsure what she meant. I just need a place to rest." "You will rest," said the woman with glowing eyes, stepping closer. "But it will be different from the sleep you've known." Her tone was soft, almost teasing, yet carried an undeniable weight. Jonah took a deep breath. He had learned long ago that survival on Red Mesa required adaptability. If these women were part of the challenge, he would face it head-on. "All right," he said. "I'll do my best to keep up." As night fell fully, Jonah settled on the bed, listening to the low hum of the outpost's energy systems. The moonlight filtered through a small window, casting slanted patterns across the floor. He felt the tension in his muscles slowly ease, though a part of him remained alert. The outpost was alive in a way he couldn't yet understand, and he sensed that nothing here would be ordinary. A faint knock echoed on the door. Jonah sat up, his hand hovering near his blaster. "Who is it?" he called. "It's me," said the authority woman, her voice calm. "Just checking on you, make sure you're settled." Jonah exhaled slowly, relaxing slightly. "I'm fine," he replied, though he wondered why he even felt the need to explain. "You will find," she said, "that people here have ways of making sure everyone is comfortable. Sometimes that involves patience, sometimes that involves surprises." Jonah tilted his head, unsure whether to be wary or curious. "Surprises?" The three women exchanged subtle glances, smiles flickering across their faces. "You'll see," said the woman with glowing eyes. "Sleep well, Jonah Steele. Tomorrow will be different." He lay back, letting the blankets cover him, trying to focus on the quiet sounds of his horse outside and the gentle hum of the outpost. Yet sleep didn't come immediately. His mind replayed the day, the journey across the plains, the sudden appearance of the outpost, the women who seemed to hold both power and mystery. He realized that arriving at a place to rest wasn't as simple as he thought. Here, even a bed came with its own challenges. Hours passed, the night deepening, shadows shifting along the walls. Jonah finally drifted into a light sleep, only to awaken briefly to the soft shuffle of movement outside his door. He held his breath, listening. The footsteps paused, a soft whisper traveled through the hall, and then nothing. By the time dawn began to tint the sky, Jonah felt as if he had been part of a dream, half warning, half promise. He rose from the bed, stretching stiff muscles, aware that the outpost was no ordinary resting place. The women had intentions, and though he didn't yet understand them, he sensed that staying here meant entering a world where his skills as a rancher, a traveler, and a survivor would be tested in ways he hadn't imagined. He stepped out of the room, and the three women were waiting. Their eyes, full of subtle amusement and intent, met his. Jonah knew this was only the beginning. The sun rose fully over Red Mesa, casting long shadows across the outpost, and Jonah felt a strange mixture of relief, curiosity, and cautious excitement. He had arrived seeking sleep, but he sensed he had also arrived at something far greater, a frontier adventure that would challenge everything he thought he knew about the world and himself. And somewhere deep in the back of his mind, Jonah wondered just what other plans the women had for him. The morning sun climbed higher, painting Red Mesa in shades of gold and red. Jonah Steele rose from the simple bed, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The outpost felt alive now, humming softly, its metal walls glowing faintly as the energy systems adjusted to daylight. The three women awaited him outside his room, each with an expression that was equal parts challenge and amusement. "Good morning," said the woman with the glowing green eyes. Her voice carried warmth, but there was a sharp edge beneath it, like steel hidden in velvet. "Sleep well?" Jonah stretched, adjusting his worn coat. "As well as I can, considering the circumstances," he replied, glancing at the outpost around him. "Still trying to figure out what kind of place this really is." The woman with metallic tattoos smiled faintly. "It's a sanctuary and a training ground. Some things you see here may surprise you, but everything has purpose." Jonah's brow furrowed. "Training ground?" He shifted his weight, sensing the weight of her words. "I just wanted a place to sleep." "And you'll get that," said the authority woman, stepping closer. "But first, you'll need to understand where you are. This outpost isn't just a shelter for travelers. It's a refuge for those who resist the corporate forces that control most of this planet. We protect the plains, the settlers, and the creatures that the corporations exploit." Jonah blinked, the words sinking in slowly. His travels had taken him across many frontier lands, but he had never imagined stumbling upon a hidden resistance right here on Red Mesa. The outpost's dual nature, part home, part secret base, began to make sense. The woman with glowing eyes gestured toward a nearby hall. "Come, we'll show you more. You need to understand the rules before you can rest properly." Jonah followed, wary but curious. The hallways opened into a larger room filled with holographic maps and strange devices. Some devices projected 3D images of the planet, showing patrol routes, hidden caves, and distant settlements. Jonah's eyes widened. This wasn't just an outpost. It was a command center. "These maps," he said, pointing at the holograms, "they show patrols and settlements." "Yes," said the woman with tattoos. We monitor the corporations and protect the innocent. It's a dangerous life and not everyone can handle it. But you, her eyes studied him carefully. You might. Jonah shifted uneasily. I'm just a rancher. I know livestock, horses, terrain. I don't know anything about fighting a corporation. The authority woman smiled faintly. You'd be surprised how valuable those skills are here. Tracking, observation, endurance, you have them in ways we need. Jonah looked at the women, noting the seriousness in their expressions. Their lives were full of danger and precision, yet there was a subtle playfulness too. It made him uneasy, and he realized that he had stepped into a world far beyond his simple understanding. Suddenly an alarm blared softly, red lights flashing along the walls. Jonah jumped back instinctively, and the women reacted instantly. Stay calm, said the authority woman. It's just a simulation for new arrivals. A simulation? Jonah repeated, trying to catch his breath. Yes, said the woman with glowing eyes. We train newcomers. You never know when the corporations will appear without warning. We need to see how you respond. Before Jonah could protest, a small holographic drone appeared in the center of the room. It whirred, spinning and projecting a glowing grid on the floor. This is your first test, said the woman with tattoos. Don't hurt yourself, but pay attention. Jonah raised an eyebrow. A test for what? To see how well you handle unexpected situations, said the authority woman. To see if you have the instincts to survive here, and to see if you can trust the women you meet in this place. Jonah took a deep breath. He had survived harsh lands, bandits, and storms, but this was different. He was in a controlled environment, being observed. The drone projected holographic figures, shapes that moved unpredictably, darting toward him. His rancher instincts kicked in. He moved quickly, sidestepping and ducking, using his hands to deflect the projections. The women watched silently, nodding occasionally. Jonah felt his heart race. The exercise was simple yet disorienting. It wasn't about combat, it was about awareness, adaptation, and timing. After several minutes, the drone powered down. Jonah's chest heaved as he wiped sweat from his brow. Is that it? He asked, breathing heavily. For now, said the woman with tattoos. You did well for someone untrained. But the real challenge is learning to trust us, and to trust yourself in ways you've never imagined. Jonah shook his head, still trying to process the sudden shift from tired traveler to trainee. I came here for a bed, not this. The authority woman placed a hand on his shoulder. And you'll get the bed, but first you need to see what staying here truly means. We don't just offer shelter, we offer a purpose. If you choose to stay, you'll be part of something bigger than yourself. Jonah nodded slowly. He didn't fully understand, but a spark of curiosity had taken root. There was more to this outpost than simple shelter, and he felt a growing sense of responsibility. The women led him to a small dining area where food had been prepared. Fresh bread, a kind of protein stew, and strange but palatable alien fruit sat on the table. Jonah hungrily ate, the flavors both familiar and strange, his energy slowly returning. As they ate, the women spoke of their pasts in small doses. The one with glowing eyes had been a scout, traveling across dangerous territories to gather intelligence. The woman with tattoos was skilled in technology and strategy, often designing defenses for the outpost. The authority woman had once been part of a larger resistance force before leading this smaller outpost. Their stories were interwoven with danger, loss, and resilience, yet they spoke with a quiet strength that impressed Jonah. You see, said the authority woman, we survive together. We protect each other and those who cannot protect themselves. And now you are part of this place, whether you like it or not. Jonah swallowed hard, realizing the weight of her words. He had thought he would stay one night, rest, and leave. But the outpost was not a place one could leave easily. Its mission, its women, and its secrets had already claimed a piece of him. The meal ended, and the women guided him back to his room. Tonight, said the woman with glowing eyes, you'll rest again. But remember, rest here is never ordinary. Pay attention to the sounds, the movements, and to us. Jonah's mind raced. He wanted to relax, to sleep, but he knew the women's words carried meaning beyond the literal. He lay on the bed, listening to the low hum of the outpost, aware of the shadows shifting along the walls. The strange new environment, the unexpected responsibilities, and the women's subtle presence kept him alert. Hours later, as Jonah drifted into a lighter sleep, he heard soft footsteps outside his door. He tensed, ready to respond. But instead of threat, a voice whispered, "Good night, Jonah. Sleep well if you can." He exhaled slowly, realizing he was not just a guest here. He was part of their world now, drawn into a rhythm he had yet to fully understand. His mind churned with possibilities. The outpost, the women, the resistance, the corporations that threatened the land. Everything was more complicated than he expected, and yet more intriguing. Jonah Steele had arrived seeking a simple place to sleep. But by the end of the day, he understood that he had entered a new kind of frontier, one where danger, challenge, and companionship existed in equal measure. And he sensed, deep down, that his life would never be the same again. As the twin moons glimmered above Red Mesa, Jonah closed his eyes, knowing that tomorrow would bring new lessons, new tests, and perhaps new alliances. The women's plans were only beginning, and he was already caught in their web, intended or not. Dawn arrived slowly over Red Mesa, painting the plains with soft streaks of orange and pale gold. Jonah Steele stirred from his sleep, muscles sore but mind alert. The outpost had a rhythm now, subtle but inescapable. He rose from the bed, adjusting his coat and brushing dust from his boots. The previous day's revelations still weighed on him, the knowledge that he was no longer a simple traveler, that the women had drawn him into a world of vigilance and danger. The three women were waiting outside, already preparing for the day. The woman with glowing eyes approached first. "Good morning, Jonah. You slept well?" she asked, though her tone hinted that questions were optional here. Jonah nodded slowly. "As well as I could. Can't say I've ever stayed somewhere like this before." "Few have," said the authority woman, her expression serious but not unkind. "And fewer still leave unchanged. Today you'll learn more about why this outpost exists and why we protect it so fiercely." Jonah followed them into the main hall, where the holographic maps and devices from yesterday had been rearranged. This time, they displayed not just patrols, but the surrounding terrain, nearby settlements, and what looked like traces of corporate activity. Small icons blinked intermittently, signaling movement in the plains. "Those are scouts and patrols," the woman with tattoos explained. "We monitor corporate forces constantly. They believe the frontier is open and free, but we know better, and now you'll help." Jonah froze for a moment, staring at the blinking icons. "Help, I'm just a rancher. I don't know anything about espionage or combat." "You know more than you realize," the authority woman said. "Tracking, observation, endurance, these are skills we value highly. And today you'll see how they apply in ways you never imagined." Jonah took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. He had survived harsh storms and dangerous animals, but this was different. This was strategy, precision, and unseen danger. He nodded slowly. "All right, I'll try." The women led him outside to a training field near the outpost. The ground was uneven, dotted with rock formations and shallow trenches, giving the area the feel of a natural obstacle course. Holographic targets appeared in the air, simulating patrol drones and corporate enforcers. "First, observation," said the woman with glowing eyes. "Notice everything, shadows, movement, energy readings, every detail counts." Jonah crouched low, scanning the field. At first it seemed simple, but soon he noticed subtle shifts in light, tiny vibrations in the ground, and even faint sounds carried by the wind. His rancher instincts kicked in. He had tracked cattle, predators, and lost travelers for years. This was the same skill set, only applied to a different kind of prey. The simulation escalated. Holographic drones moved unpredictably, requiring Jonah to duck, sidestep, and anticipate their paths. The women moved alongside him, offering guidance but letting him make decisions. "Good," said the woman with tattoos. "Trust your instincts, you'll need them." After hours of training, Jonah's body ached, but his confidence grew. He realized that the skills he had honed on the plains, tracking, patience, reading subtle cues, were exactly what the outpost needed. As they rested, the authority woman approached him. "Tomorrow, you'll join a patrol. Real scouts, real risks. We need to see how you perform when the danger is real." Jonah's stomach tightened. "Real danger?" he asked. "Yes," she said, her eyes steady. "Corporate forces are active nearby. They test travelers, scouts, anyone they find suspicious. You'll go with us and see what that means." Evening came, and the three women gathered around a table in the outpost's central hall. A map glowed between them, showing the paths they planned to take. Jonah studied it closely, noting the valleys, cliffs, and hidden passages. The woman with glowing eyes leaned toward him. "Tomorrow, we move quietly. Any sound could alert corporate scouts. You'll follow my lead at first, then take initiative when needed." Jonah nodded. He felt a strange mix of tension and anticipation. He had come here for rest, yet now he was preparing for a mission. Night fell and the outpost hummed quietly, the twin moons casting faint shadows across the plains. Jonah tried to sleep, but the anticipation made rest difficult. He listened to the faint movement of the women, their whispers and footsteps creating a rhythm he was beginning to recognize. By the time he drifted into sleep, he was already half prepared for the morning. At dawn, Jonah awoke to the crisp chill of the mesa air. The women had already readied their gear, blending the aesthetics of frontier survival with advanced technology. Weapons were holstered, communication devices discreetly placed, and energy readings calibrated. Jonah's horse was waiting, saddled and ready. The mechanical hybrid snorted softly, steam rising from its legs as it adjusted to the morning temperature. Jonah mounted carefully, feeling the familiar rhythm of its movements. Despite the strange environment and the high stakes, a part of him found comfort in this simple connection. They moved quietly across the plains, shadows among shadows. The authority woman led, with Jonah in the center and the other two women flanking him. The terrain was rugged, dotted with sharp rocks and shallow canyons. Every step required attention, every sound could betray their presence. Hours passed without incident, giving Jonah time to observe the women. Their teamwork was seamless, subtle signals, hand gestures, and eye contact coordinating movement and strategy. Jonah marveled at their precision, realizing how much he had to learn to keep pace. Suddenly, the woman with glowing eyes halted, signaling silence. Jonah crouched instinctively, scanning the surrounding area. Ahead, a group of corporate drones patrolled, their sensors sweeping the plains in slow, methodical arcs. "Stay low," whispered the authority woman. "We'll move behind cover. Follow my signals." Jonah's pulse quickened. His hands gripped his rifle, heart pounding. He had faced wild animals and hostile settlers, but the cold precision of these drones sent a shiver through him. Every step had to be deliberate, every breath measured. They moved carefully, sliding behind rocks and using the terrain to conceal their presence. Jonah noticed how the women timed their movements perfectly with the drone's sweeps, advancing only when the sensors had passed. His mind raced, calculating paths and timing, relying on instincts he didn't know he still had. Suddenly, a small branch snapped beneath Jonah's boot. A drone's sensors swiveled in his direction. He froze, holding his breath. The woman with tattoos signaled him to stay still. Slowly, the drone's light swept past, oblivious to their presence. Jonah exhaled quietly, relief washing over him. The patrol continued, more tense than before, but Jonah felt a growing confidence. He was learning, adapting, surviving in this strange world. The women acknowledged his efforts with subtle nods, reinforcing that he was part of their team now, not just a visitor. As the sun set, they returned to the outpost, weary but unscathed. Jonah dismounted, rubbing his sore legs, yet feeling a sense of accomplishment. The outpost had become more than a place to sleep. It was a test, a challenge, and a home where he could belong if he chose to embrace it. That night, as Jonah lay on the bed, he reflected on the day. He had faced drones, learned new skills, and seen the women in action. Their plans were no longer mysterious. They were strategic, calculated, and necessary. Yet, the subtle playfulness and attention they showed him reminded him that this world was unpredictable in more ways than one. Sleep finally took him, deep and dreamless, with a sense of anticipation for tomorrow. He had crossed a threshold, no longer a traveler seeking shelter, but a participant in the life of the outpost, entwined in its dangers and its secrets. Jonah Steele had arrived looking for a place to sleep. By the end of the day, he understood he had found purpose, companionship, and the first real adventure of his life. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more lessons, and perhaps the first true test of whether he belonged here. And somewhere deep inside, Jonah knew that the women's plans were far from over, and he was ready to face them. The first light of dawn stretched across Red Mesa, casting long shadows over the rugged plains. Jonah Steele rose from the modest bed, muscles sore from yesterday's patrol, but his mind sharp. The outpost hummed with activity. Today was different. The energy in the air was taut, electric, and he could feel it in his bones. The authority woman approached him with a solemn expression. "Jonah, we have company. Corporate scouts have increased patrols near the northern ridge. They're testing the defenses, and it's more serious than yesterday's exercises." Jonah swallowed hard, gripping the handle of his rifle. "We're going to fight them?" he asked. The woman shook her head slightly. Not fight in the traditional sense. We protect, delay, and observe, but you'll be part of it. You'll need everything you've learned, tracking, observation, timing. Are you ready? Jonah nodded, a mix of determination and nervous anticipation settling over him. I'm ready. The three women led him outside. The plains were quiet, deceptively calm. Their mechanical horse followed closely, its metal legs gleaming in the morning light. The authority woman gave quick, precise instructions, pointing out the paths they would take, the vantage points to hold, and the signals to use. Every movement, every gesture was part of a carefully choreographed strategy. As they approached the northern ridge, Jonah's pulse quickened. In the distance, a group of corporate drones glimmered under the sun, scanning the plains systematically. Jonah crouched low behind a rock, heart pounding. He had faced simulated drones before, but these were real, moving and responding unpredictably. The woman with glowing eyes whispered, "Remember your training. Observe, wait, then act. We move as one." Jonah's mind raced. He scanned the terrain, noticing small details, the faint traces of dust stirred by drone movement, the subtle shifts in light across the rocks, the distant hum of their energy systems. He felt a familiar rhythm in the chaos, a skill honed over years on the frontier. This was like tracking cattle across open plains, only the prey was dangerous and artificial. The first drone veered unexpectedly, its sensors sweeping toward their hiding spot. Jonah froze, holding his breath. A hand on his shoulder signaled him to stay still. Slowly, the drone moved past, oblivious to their presence. He exhaled quietly, relief washing over him. The team advanced carefully. Jonah followed the authority woman's lead, using rocks and trenches for cover. The other two women flanked him, silent but alert, every movement precise. Jonah realized that he had become part of their rhythm, no longer an outsider. Suddenly, a group of drones shifted direction and advanced toward a small settlement nearby. Jonah's stomach twisted. Civilians were at risk. The authority woman signaled them to move faster, using hidden paths and natural cover. Jonah kept pace, relying on instinct and the lessons he had learned. The women communicated silently, hand gestures and subtle nods guiding each movement. Jonah was amazed at their coordination. He had never encountered a team so precise, so unified in purpose. And now he was a part of it. They reached a vantage point overlooking the settlement. Jonah peered through his scope, spotting the drones moving among the outskirts. The authority woman whispered, "We can't confront them directly, but we can create a diversion. Jonah, you'll lead it, distract them without being detected." Jonah's pulse spiked. He had never led anything like this before. "Me, are you sure?" he asked, glancing at the women. The woman with tattoos placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "We trust you. Your instincts, your training, they brought you here. Now it's your turn to act." Jonah nodded, taking a deep breath. He moved into position, using rocks and small ridges for cover. The drones were focused on the settlement, unaware of his presence. Jonah triggered a small energy flare from his pack, sending it rolling across the ground. The drone's sensors reacted, momentarily confused, giving the settlement precious moments to evacuate. A subtle thrill surged through him. His actions, though cautious, had a direct impact. The women watched, guiding him silently with gestures. Jonah felt the strange combination of fear and exhilaration that only true danger could bring. The drones adjusted their path, moving toward Jonah's diversion. He ducked behind a large boulder, heart racing. Using the shadows and terrain, he led the drones away from the settlement, their sensors tracking his movement. Every step, every pause required precise calculation. Finally, Jonah led the drones into a narrow canyon, where the women had prepared a small trap. Energy nets and sound emitters activated, confusing the drones further and halting their advance. Jonah watched in awe as the devices worked seamlessly, neutralizing the threat without direct confrontation. The women emerged from cover, nodding in approval. The authority woman approached Jonah, her expression proud. "You did well. That was quick thinking and brave action. You kept the settlement safe and helped protect the outpost." Jonah exhaled, feeling the weight of the adrenaline slowly fade. I did it," he asked, incredulous. "You did," the woman with glowing eyes said, smiling faintly. "And you will continue to do more if you choose to stay." The team returned to the outpost, the plains now quiet once more. Jonah dismounted, legs trembling slightly but mind alive with the exhilaration of the morning. The mechanical horse snorted softly, as if acknowledging his efforts. Inside the outpost, the women gathered around the central hall. Jonah finally felt a sense of belonging. He had arrived seeking a simple bed, a moment of rest. Instead, he had faced real danger, made critical decisions, and proved himself capable in ways he hadn't imagined. The authority woman approached him, her gaze steady. "Jonah, you came here for rest, but you stayed because you are needed. You are part of this outpost now." "Will you continue?" Jonah considered the question. He had seen the bravery of these women, experienced the thrill of defending the innocent, and realized that this place had given him more than rest. It had given him purpose. I'll stay," he said finally, his voice firm. "I want to help, I want to be part of this." The women exchanged glances, subtle smiles appearing on their faces. "Good," said the woman with tattoos. "Your place is here with us." The authority woman extended her hand, and Jonah took it, feeling the weight of trust and camaraderie. He was no longer just a rancher seeking shelter. He was a protector, a participant in the defense of Red Mesa, and a companion to these remarkable women. As the sun climbed higher, Jonah looked out over the plains. The twin moons were still faintly visible, a reminder of the strange, alien world he had come to call home. The outpost behind him buzzed with life and purpose. He felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing he had found a place where he belonged, not just a bed to sleep in, but a home, a mission, and a team that valued his skills and instincts. The women approached, walking beside him as they prepared for the next patrol. Jonah felt the camaraderie, the unspoken bond formed in the heat of danger and shared responsibility. The adventure that had begun with a simple search for rest had transformed into a life filled with purpose, challenge, and unexpected friendship. For the first time in years, Jonah Steele felt truly alive. He had arrived on Red Mesa seeking sleep. He had found a world of danger, strategy, and unexpected connection. And as he rode alongside the women who had become his allies, he knew that his journey was only just beginning. Tomorrow, there would be more patrols, more challenges, and more lessons, but Jonah was ready. The outpost had become his home, the women his comrades, and Red Mesa a frontier worth defending. He had discovered a new life, one far beyond the quiet plains he had once known, and he would embrace it fully. As the wind whispered across the plains, and the outpost stood vigilant behind him, Jonah realized that the night he had sought so desperately was never just about sleep. It had been about awakening to a new purpose, a life where courage, instinct, and trust mattered more than anything else. And in that moment, he knew he would never return to the solitary path he had walked before.